So as we take a look inside the season series, what do we think about this matchup? Sure, the overall numbers that you look at most are the 6-2 record that the Penguins have over the Islanders, but this is a stingy Islanders defense. We know they made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Final last year and look like they have the pieces to do another deep run this year. How does this shake out, Stu?
You know, this is an interesting one. That Islanders system, that Barry Trotz structure, that attention to detail, that you know, that game management, that's it's a hallmark of any Barry Trotz team. That can be a recipe for success, and we saw that group go to a conference final last year based on that brand of hockey. The interesting thing for me, Jamie, as these two teams match up, and Sydney touched on it, I think the part of the Pittsburgh game right now that has really allowed them to amass the record that they have, their ability to play that. They're on their toes, Weeksy, but at the same time, they're playing a really patient brand of hockey. So they're not going to give you anything in the way of high-risk plays or poor puck management so that a club like New York can kind of turn that and transition on you, come back the other way, and light the lamp on you. It's going to be an interesting I liken this one almost to a bit of a chess match, and the neutral ice will be a really important stretch of hockey for these two teams. So I think this will be a fascinating one. Odds are, for me, I give the edge to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and largely due to some of the aspects that I've talked about, but Tristan Jarry as well, and the season that he's really had. Take a look at the splits on Tristan Jarry over the course of this year. His first 19, nothing to sneeze at, 11-7-1. Pretty nice numbers. The save percentage starts with a 9, but look at the way this guy has buttoned up his game down the last 20 of this campaign. 14-2-2. There just aren't a lot of chinks in the armor. The save percentage well above 9, ticking around 915. He just really looks locked in. And I think those two aspects taken together leaves me leaning Penguins round 1 on these two.
Some great points there, Stu. And, you know, as I look at this matchup, something that'll be interesting for me is the Pittsburgh Penguins. You see their save percentage splits by games, and down the back half of the stretch for Tristan Jarry, who's back on his game, has rediscovered his form, which is great. And they know that Casey DeSmith has played well in behind him as well. Look, here's the biggest thing that I'm looking at in this matchup. Stylistically, for the Islanders, and let's start with them, we know that they're a good defensive team.
Yeah.
But how well are they going to stay patient enough to defend and balance that versus attacking at the right times and not compromising their defensive strength that they have, right? That's the Islanders.
Yeah.
We love their team. We think that they're clearly very well coached. Both these teams are. But for the Islanders, I think their defending is very essential. And what can they do offensively when they get those opportunities? Now, I think Oliver Wahlstrom has been one of those players that stepped in and played very well in the absence of their captain, Anders Lee. But now if you turn the page for Pittsburgh, I love your point in that Pittsburgh defends better than people give them credit for.
Yeah.
And they're not sloppy and loose offensively. And Mike Sullivan always wanted them to compete hard, to play on both sides of the puck because he knows what they can do offensively. So do the Pittsburgh Penguins commit to their defending the way they have to this point? We know they can light the lamp, and Jeff Carter is a huge acquisition. Right now, down the middle, Sid, Geno Malkin, Jeff Carter.
Yeah.
I mean, you got 2 out of 3 that are Hall of Famers. Maybe Jeff Carter gets in based on the strength of winning 2 Stanley Cups and international play for Team Canada and stuff, too. So you possibly have 3 Hall of Famers down the middle. That makes this a very intriguing matchup for me.
It really does. And, you know, it's like there's an additional 2 aspects to it. The impact that Carter has given you from a deeper place inside the roster, 9 goals over his 14 games, really formidable if you think about it in terms of the top 9 this group can roll out. But we've almost seen the Pittsburgh Penguins kind of add a wrinkle to their identity or maybe go as far as redefining who they are as a group, because we're accustomed to talking about them, and of course, it's Crosby, it's Gensel, it's Rust, it's Malkin up front, and they're really, really lethal up front. But missing some of those players to key injuries over the course of the year, Coach Sullivan and the group really bought in. They now need to play a more simple, a more patient brand of hockey. So really, they've got a lot of these kind of New York Islanders, Barry Trotz type aspects to their identity, to their character, and yet they're far more lethal than I think I shouldn't say far more lethal. They probably just get the edge there over the Islanders. So again, it's an interesting series to contrast. I'm really focused on this one. Even though I shade towards Pitt, I promise you, this one's got to be 6 games at a minimum.
I was going to say 6, maybe 7.
Two great defensive teams.
Yeah.
It's going to be 7-6 game 1, right? We'll see. Yeah,
Yeah, right,
see how it
exactly
all
right.
shakes out.
Exactly right.
Exactly.
After having built it up that way. Yeah, you bet.
Penguins and the Islanders. Pittsburgh the higher seed. This series begins Sunday at noon on NBC. I can't wait to watch this one play out. Our Mike Kelly with a breakdown.
Islanders, Penguins, and this is the most extreme example of offense versus defense in the first round, and more specifically, transition offense versus transition defense. We take a look at the season series. Pittsburgh won 6 of the 8 head-to-head games, despite zone time scoring chances and rush chances being fairly even. The thing with the Penguins is they don't need many chances to make teams pay. Pittsburgh scored on 6% of its shot attempts this year, which is the highest rate of any team in the National Hockey League. You take a look at that Penguins top line of Sidney Crosby, Brian Rust, and Jake Gensel. These guys can whip the puck around in the offensive zone as well as any line in the National Hockey League, and they've had success breaking down the Islanders' defense this season. As well as that cycle game works, the other area you got to watch out for with Pittsburgh, like I mentioned, is how fast the Penguins play. They've scored 52 times off the rush this season, which ranks top 3 in the National Hockey League. You add Jeff Carter into the mix, who's added a little bit of speed in the lineup as well. They're even more deadly. But this is where the unstoppable force meets the immovable object. The Islanders defend the rush and kill plays in the neutral zone as well as any team. So you've got the second highest scoring rush team against the second best rush defense. The team that wins the neutral zone battle in this series may very well be the team that moves on to round 2. And that's what happened when these teams met in the first round a couple years ago, back in 2019. The Isles didn't allow a single rush goal en route to a sweep of the Penguins. The season series favors Pittsburgh, and so does my statistical model. But if I've learned one thing over the years, never count out Barry Trotz and the New York Islanders. Bruins and Capitals, ring the bell. This is going to be a heavyweight tilt. When you look at the season series between these two teams, it was as tight as any first-round matchup that we will see. 4 wins apiece, grade A scoring chances identical, goals nearly identical. Don't be surprised if this one goes the distance. So let's take a look at a couple of areas that could tilt the series in each team's favor. For Boston, we got to talk about that newfound depth with Taylor Hall fitting like an absolute glove on the second line. And this gives Boston balance in its lineup that they didn't have before. Not only has Hall's play been top-notch, but it's balanced out the entire forward group. Then you add Mike Riley into the mix, who's been a strong addition on the back end. And this Bees team looks a lot different than it did earlier in the season. When you consider how much Boston's top line also has dominated the Caps in the season series, outscoring Washington 10-3 while on the ice at even strength, that added threat of depth scoring makes even strength play not look like much of a weakness for Boston anymore, which it was earlier this season. Where the Caps have a significant advantage in the season series is on special teams. The penalty kill's 21 for 24 against Boston, and the power play has scored 9 times, clicking at 30%. Now, interestingly enough, Alex Ovechkin only has 1 of these 9 goals, as the Caps have had a lot of success getting TJ Oshie open looks in the bumper spot. Oshie has a team-leading 5 goals in the season series. This series has a ton of skill. It should be physical as well. I've got the Bruins as slight favorites, but let's be honest, either team could come out of this series and go on a lengthy run in the playoffs.